with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffin. Rich, we had a very, very passionate show last week. And, we talked about trade. We talked about immigration. And let me tell you, these topics are going to continue to be in the news for quite a long time. Even today, these are topics that we're going to have to check in with. And particularly trade. My goodness, another $200 billion of tariffs on China. China says, hey, wait a second, we're going to do something about that. Trump says, well, we'll go 300 more. So I don't know where that's going to end. And, then, of course, immigration and jobs. And, are there Americans who are there to take the jobs? Do they need more training? Do we need more immigration? What kind of immigration do we need? What kind of country we're going to have in the future? What is best for American prosperity? Boy, Rich, this is a very, very passionate and charged time.
Well, I agree. It's very hard to sleep. No, really, because
you don't sleep.
Well, no, I don't sleep. I put in maybe 3 or 4 hours max, and then I'm up, and that's just the rhythm I'm in. But the point of the matter is that there are things out there right now. We are living in a very colorful, vibrant, scary, emotional moment in topics such as trade, tariffs, trade wars. Things that are starting to grip Main Street in America because the politicos that are out there are pushing it to hit mainstream America because all of these now, Neil, become fodder for voting for or voting against a certain person. The one thing I do find quite interesting, though, is that I'm starting to understand, finally, after all these years on this planet, that I don't believe anything I hear. I make up my own decisions. I do my own research. And I feel that what people are pushing on you when you listen to all these talking heads that you and I all listen to and read about is that you have to take it with a grain of salt. And I do appreciate, I have to tell you this and be upfront with our wonderful guest, that I am very happy that this president actually takes it seriously and is looking out for America first. I happen to like that. I think that's a good thing. And I think his discussion that he had with NATO yesterday and with Angela Merkel, an incredible discussion about, trade tariffs, paying for NATO. We pay the most for NATO, and then we're supposed to protect them from Russia. And then Germany turns around and cuts a $75 billion deal with Russia, to have natural gas come into Russia, into the EU, particularly Germany. And at the same time, the ex-German chancellor is the president of a Russian company that's in charge of, the 75% of the gas coming into the EU. And no one seems to think that's a problem. So, yes, we live in very strange times, and it's exciting. That's why I don't sleep. Well, just saying.
Thanks for that. And we're going to be folling up on a number of things there because you said a lot of things that I'm going to come back to.
Yeah,
but first,
I'm jazzed.
You brought up about a name that's, I can't imagine how many times it has been said over the last 48, 72 hours, Brett Kavanaugh and President Trump's selection for the Supreme Court. A very, very, very big and bold decision. Let's bring on Adam Carrington, who's an assistant professor at Hillsdale College, a beautiful, beautiful school in southern Michigan. Adam, welcome to Made in America.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
So tell us, what do you think about this selection? Did the president play it safe? Did he go bold? Did he just did he talk to a lot of those folks around him and said, who can get confirmed and let's go with that?
Well, having not been in those conversations, I won't guess exactly what he said, but I will say that Kavanaugh was considered one of the safer picks among the ones that he could have chosen. Barrett was considered the more rolling the dice. And I say that because Kavanaugh has been someone that's been on the Supreme Court shortlist for a long time. There was this fake paper headline that was dug up during the 2012 election to try to scare people to vote against Romney, saying a five-member Supreme Court 5 Supreme Court justices overturned Roe v. Wade. And guess who the 5th justice on the court was, the one that wasn't on there before? It was Kavanaugh. So I think in many ways he's a person that's been bred to do this, and he was, I think, one of the safer picks as far as pedigree, as far as confirmability, as far as this goes.
I just find that the hypocrisy and the duplicitousness of the whole scenario just cracks me up. I think Kavanaugh's a jurist. I mean, he's a brilliant man. He has a great history. His writing is wonderful. He stays on tack. He's a true conservative in the sense that he believes in the Constitution, and you should interpret the law based upon the Constitution, and let's not get too emotional about it. The law is the law, and that's the way it has to go down. And I do find it ironic that Kagan recommended his hiring to become a professor, and yet the Democrats are saying, well, I don't know if he can make it. He's obviously, and he's not right for this. He's borderline incompetent. I mean, the world's going to come to an end. Puppies will die. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Yet, yes, I find this to be very interesting. I think he was a good choice. I was actually hoping for a female to be there. I thought Amy would have been great. A great jurist. Well,
we don't know. I mean, President Trump could get another selection here, or maybe even another 2 selections. So it'd be fascinating to know what he does with his next selection, should it come.
Well,
what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, Adam, what do you think?
What does the president do with another selection?
I think Barrett has a very high chance of being the next pick. She's 46, which is very young for a Supreme Court justice. The other thing is she had only written about 9 opinions as a court judge and written about 6 law review articles. And so I think that there might have been some wanting her to get a little bit more of a paper trail. No one doubts her brilliance, just as I think no one that's taking things seriously doubt Kavanaugh's. But Kavanaugh had a long paper trail to try to get an idea of what kind of judge he would be. And I think a lot of people have very high hopes for Barrett, and I think very highly likelihood those will play out. But I don't blame the president for saying, let's go with the better-known quantity now because we may have a chance to do so in the future. I think she'd be the front runner if there's any opening, whether it's Ginsburg, Breyer, or anyone else next time.
So, Adam, with the president's decision, I mean, this is the decision. Senator Schumer says we're going to fight this with everything we got. With everything we got, we're going to put it all on the line. And it wasn't much longer that Senator Manchin, the Democrat senator from West Virginia, says, I like this Kavanaugh. I think he's got a lot of qualities that I like. He looks like a very, very good selection. I mean, is that game over or what?
Basically, and I think they knew that going in, unless there's some awful thing in his past that he clubs baby seals for pleasure on the side, which I strongly doubt we'll find. There really isn't much to get him on, and the Democrats sort of blew their chance to do something here with what they did with Neil Gorsuch. They went after Gorsuch when he was only replacing a very similar jurist, Antonin Scalia, and their ability to filibuster was nuked by Mitch McConnell. Now you have someone who's really going to probably move the court in a significant direction, replacing Kennedy, and they don't have really anything they can do except for really smoke and mirrors. There's going to be a lot.
Tell us about moving the court.
Yeah.
Tell us about moving the court. This is very important. This is very important. You said there's 300-odd decisions. You've been reading those decisions. You've been looking at those decisions. What do those decisions tell you? If you just said that you think he's going to move the court to a more conservative tilt, why do you say that?
His approach to the Constitution starting out. Now, Kennedy did a number of conservative-leaning things. He was in the majority for Heller, protecting the Second Amendment. He's protected free speech rights in several cases for conservatives. But he was very inconsistent from an originalist or a textualist point of view. And Kavanaugh is not. I think he very much is going to stick to what did he think the original meaning of the Constitution was. What does the text itself say in a way that Kennedy did not? Now, where are you going to see that play out? I think you're going to see that in, for example, the bureaucracy, when bureaucratic agencies try to sort of go rogue and do whatever they want. He already has a history of slapping those down and forcing them to protect, to do what Congress told them to do. I think also he's going to be much more tough on crime. I think criminal litigants, death penalty cases, he's much more likely to step in on the side of protecting people along those lines. And I think just his approach in general is going to mean that on things like abortion or same-sex marriage or religious liberty, that he's going to be much closer to, I think, what the founders said the courts should be doing, and staying away from sort of legislating from the bench, as I think Kennedy was much more likely to do.
Very, very fascinating, Adam. Very, very fascinating. A very important decision. And I think one thing that everybody agrees is this is going to have a generational impact, if not longer. And so huge decision coming up. Looks like President Trump made an excellent decision. Adam Carrington, who's assistant professor at Hillsdale College. Thanks for being on the show, Adam.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
There are a number of things, big things that came out this week that have a big impact on your jobs. Dr. Rothman and I are going to talk about a few of them.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, man, you said a lot in the opening segment, and one thing you said was the politicos is, really stirring things up, and, you don't know what to believe, and you just got to kind of go with your own thoughts and do your own research and come out with your own opinions. But talking about Politico, and I'm talking now the news organization Politico, said that there's going to be a cataclysmic global crisis this week because of the tariffs. So I don't see it happening. I've been watching for the stock markets to get absolutely hammered, not only here, but around the world, but it's not happening. So where is this cataclysmic global crisis coming from with this trade war? I mean, it's absolutely got you know what I think, Rich? That the Democrats have talked tough on trade, for a long time. And they've really particularly talked tough on China. I mean, including President Obama when he was running for the very first time back in 2008, I'm going to take care of China. And this Bush guy, he did nothing about China. And he's not tough enough. And I'm the tough guy here. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to clean this mess up. But, just like a lot of politicians, you get sucked into the machine. And that's what happened to him. And that's what's happened to every candidate prior. They talk tough and they do nothing. They roar like a lion and they act like a lamb once they get elected. And now here President Trump actually came in and talked tough, and he's actually doing it. I think the Democrats are so upset with themselves that he's doing what they said that they were going to do, and now they're just angry that they were not the ones to do it. What do you say?
I agree with you on that. What we have in the White House now, and I listen to these people saying, well, the bad thing about Trump being with NATO and talking is that you just don't know what he's going to do, and he's so irrational at times. No, that's who the man is. And that's part of the game. And that's what the people elected. This is what people want. Here's the deal. He's different. You want to sum it up? He's different. He's not what Obama was. Thank God he's not what Obama was. He actually knows what he's doing. But he's not what Clinton was, and he's not any of the predecessors who were there. Why? Because he's not a politico. Now that you use the word, he's not a political person. He's a guy. He's a smart, and don't ever think he's not, a smart guy who's been very successful, who's an incredibly successful businessman, and knows how to get, generally speaking, what he wants, And the point of the matter is he has a point of view, and that is the status quo cannot exist because the status quo is not what's good for America. And he's following through on that. And it's making the Democrats insane. They don't know how to deal with a guy like that because he doesn't cower. It doesn't happen. Obama cowered. I mean, he bent down to everybody in the world, gave an apology tour, ran around the world saying everything that's wrong with the world is America. No, but this president's saying, let me tell you something. The policies that you have, Europe, are not working for us. The policies don't make sense. And we're going to talk about this later in the show, but the policies that we have with NATO, you expect the United States to pay the largest share of NATO. We do. We do that. And we do that for what reason? Well, because post-World War II, we're taking care of the NATO allies from Russia. Okay. So in the meantime, what happens? The Germans go ahead and cut a deal with Russia, giving them billions of dollars to a country that we're supposed to give all this money to protect them from. At the same time, they have high tariffs on American products going into Europe. But their products come into the United States. Pretty cool. Pretty good. And from our point of view, from the president's point of view, that doesn't make sense. It just isn't logical. Why are we going to pay all this money to protect you from the big bear of the North, and you're going to give money, you're going to give honey to the big bear of the North so they can then work with you and control your economy, and everything's screwed up? Isn't anything wrong with that? And then you have the audacity to keep U.S. products out of your countries. Oh my God! So the empirical logic of some of that drives the Democrats crazy. So then the only thing that they can do is go crazy. The only thing they can do is come up with all these insane things that they're throwing against the wall, and hopefully some of it will stick, or maybe with some of the younger people. But I got to tell you, I think they're creating a large plurality of independents when the next election comes and the 2020 election comes. I think you're going to see a growth of independents.
Interesting the way you tied that all together.
Do you like that one? I thought that was good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, you have two coleslaws at lunch. It just does it to you. I don't know why. Something about it.
You know, we're going to switch gears because we've done a lot of shows on America's energy independence. And there was a headline out this week: U.S. set to become the world's top oil producer, the government says. Yep. Wow, America is the world's top oil producer. I mean, who would have thought about that?
Well, not Jimmy Carter. I don't think he knew about it. Or Obama. Didn't Obama just a few years say, you're not going to dig your way out of this one?
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's amazing. I think it's absolutely amazing that in the jobs that we will create and what that will do for our economy and what that will do for our allies, too. Absolutely amazing. Hey, Rich, you know, we got to move on here now, and we're going to go to immigration. And this is a very, very hot topic. We're going to have on with us Steve Camarota from the Center of Immigration Studies. We're going to talk about a number of things that he's written about, but you'll be very surprised about the job market in the role of our people versus immigrants. It's very fascinating. Don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neil Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Rich, as I promised, we're going to talk about immigration. Immigration reform, what kind of immigration do we need? You know, should we be the worldwide talent scouts and bring in the best minds, entrepreneurialism, people who want to take risk, want to invest their money? Or should we promote chain migration, immigration, which is basically one person gets in, you have an anchor immigrant, and then all of a sudden you got 50 or 60 people coming in with no skills.
No merit,
and just coming in. And it happens. And let me tell you, that has been America's immigration system forever. You know, so is that right? Our next guest, incredible guest, been on with us before. Very, very good. Writes, speaks. He's all over the networks talking about immigration. What kind of immigration should we have? None other than Steve Camarota, who's from the Center of Immigration Studies. Steve, welcome back to Made in America.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Hey, Rich told me about your. I actually didn't see it, but you were on with Tucker Carlson, and you're having a discussion about immigration and do we have the people here to fulfill the jobs that we're creating? Do we not have them? Big business would have you believe that we just have to go out in the world and bring in all these people because we don't have enough people here to work. But then again, if you look at labor force participation, we're still not where we need to be. We did a show just recently, and we had a guest on, and they said at this point of a recovery, labor force participation should be 6-7% higher than it is right now, meaning there's a lot of Americans not working that should be working. Seems to be like these two things are off. You can't have it both ways. Which way is it? Do we have the people to take these jobs? Or do we need to bring people in to fulfill our jobs? Which way is it, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. On the one hand, it is true that unemployment, the official unemployment rate, is low. But just so your listeners understand, that only counts someone as unemployed if they're not working, but say they've actively looked for a job in the last 4 weeks. If you look 5 weeks ago, you're not unemployed. You drop out of both the numerator and in the denominator when they do that calculation. If you're just discouraged and haven't been looking for a while and you're idle and not working, that you're not considered unemployed. Unemployed means you're not working and have said that you're looking in the last 4 weeks. And what we've seen over the last really long term, about 3 decades, but especially in the last 18 years, is a big increase in the number of people who are outside the labor force. That is, they're not in the labor force. Or you put it the other way, are the labor force participation rates just don't look very good.
So, I mean, so is big business doing the right thing? Are they out there? Are they trying to train people for the jobs that they have, or is it just cheaper for them to bring someone in from overseas?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Here's what's happening: is they just become accustomed to, using the guest worker program and advocating for its expansion. Whether it's J-1 visas for summer jobs, whether it's H-2B, which is the seasonal non-agricultural jobs, whether it's H-1B, I'm sorry, is the unskilled jobs. H-2B is the more skilled jobs. They become reliant on that. And, of course, they just always want ever more. If they have an illegal immigrant worker, they want to legalize, and they want to bring in more folks. But what the latest data show is that if we say just look at people without a college education, where things look pretty bad, we're looking at about 50 million people without a college education, either unemployed, which is a relatively modest part of this, or entirely out of the labor force, and that's 18 to 65. So we have an enormous supply of potential workers. And if the economy was, say, what it was in 2000, at least 6 or 7 million of those people should be back in the labor force. But that's not what's been happening. So we have this huge bunch of people on the sidelines. The other piece of evidence that indicates we don't have a labor shortage is that wages don't seem to be rising very rapidly. People generally don't make more now than they did 20 years ago, controlling for inflation. And that's especially true of those without a college degree.
Well, and I think that's very important. I mean, let's just cut to the bottom line and what's really good for these large corporations who want to hire these people. I mean, if in fact you're going to stick with a non-domestic labor force for certain class of jobs that they want to fulfill, as opposed to using the domestic individuals or even training those who could be here, what does it really mean to their bottom line, Steve? It sounds like they're the ones that are suppressing the wages. It sounds like that's one of the reasons that we're not getting anywhere, but it really inures great benefit to some of these corporations. Pretty insidious.
Right. So, yeah, probably the main reason we're not getting much wage growth, too, is that all these people on the sidelines, some of them do come into the labor force, but they never show up in unemployment. So that's important. The unemployment number just probably isn't very meaningful. The reason we're not getting much wage growth is we have this huge supply of workers. Now, look, from the employer's point of view, they don't want to pay more. Yes, we generally pay less today for farm work or for meat and poultry processing or for our cashier and so forth than we did 20, 30 years ago. But the employer is accustomed to this now, and he doesn't want to raise wages. But the fact that he's not is powerful evidence that we don't have a labor shortage, because, as you remind your listeners, whenever something really is in short supply, in this case workers, the price of that thing goes up as people bid up the price for something that's scarce. And, of course, the price of labor is wages. And we don't see a rise in wages. And the fact that we have all these folks on the sideline is very, is strong evidence that what's happening is that we would have expected wages to rise. We would expect more of these people to get pulled into the labor force. But immigration, in effect, is short-circuiting that process by allowing in so many legal immigrants. That's the permanent immigrants through the green cards, the temporary workers of various kinds, and tolerating widespread illegal immigration. We're sort of short-circuiting what should be happening, which is more people joining the labor force and wages rising rapidly.
Hey, Steve, it's a good place to break. Let's go for a quick break, and I want to get you back and talk about teenage unemployment and where are we at with our teenagers getting into the workforce. You got a couple of minutes?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Hey, coming up, we got Steve Camarota from the Center of Immigration Studies. Fascinating discussion about our labor market, immigration, and let's talk about our teenagers. Are they getting the experience that they need for a productive life? You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffin, and we are on with Steve Camarota, who's from the Center of Immigration Studies. Very, very fascinating discussion about your jobs, immigration, and where is our labor market going. Hey, Steve, here's a headline that came out this week. Record number of Americans voluntarily quit their jobs. So that's interesting. So what's happening with all of these folks quitting their jobs? I mean, it's like record numbers, people quitting their jobs, labor force participation, the unemployment number. I mean, what does that all mean?
Yeah, now the quitting a job is complicated because a lot of that reflects people, hitting retirement age or getting near retirement, and the rise in the stock market probably is allowing people to maybe retire a year early. So that's a somewhat different phenomenon. The question we were talking about of teenagers, wow, they are the situation. The employment picture has the bottom's dropped out, to put it succinctly. Look, just as recently as 1994, if we looked at that summer and what happened to American teens, about 64% were in the labor force back then. That means they either had a job or were at least looking for one. This summer, it looks to be about 42%. It's about a 22 percentage point decline, or decline by about a third. So a really huge decline in work among American teens. And the reason why that matters, beyond the fact that, well, these kids will be worse off or they won't have money for college or what have you, is so that's the short-term impact. But the really big problem is that the research shows that if you don't work when you're young, then it's much less likely, or it makes it less likely, that you'll work as you get old. And it seems that what the research indicates is that if you don't learn that, say, when you're 17, it's very hard to learn it when you're 27.
So let's talk about that for a second. What areas are backing off from hiring kids? I mean, obviously, those sophomoric answers are going to be, fast food. That's a lot of kids get jobs, Would you like to supersize that? What would you like with your fries? And so forth. Is that been hit? I mean, you can see it in many of the fast food restaurants. They don't have order takers anymore. It's like a huge iPad board that you just hit, do your thing, put in your debit card, your credit card, you get your food, you go over and you're done. And,
or you have older people working in fast food restaurants because they can't get a job and they got to raise a family of 4 working in a McDonald's. I mean, that's not right either.
So, Stephen, what segments do we see the greatest hit for these kids that can't seem to find jobs anymore?
Right. So a place where teenagers traditionally have found work is exactly what you might expect. The top job for teenagers in the summer, just last summer, say, looking at the data, was cashiers. The second was like waiters and waitresses. The third was retail sales, which is similar to cashiers. Cooks and food preparation was the other. And in each of these occupations, immigrants make up, between 1 in 6 and 1 in 3 workers. So there are a lot of workers in those occupations. Other areas where immigrants sometimes compete with natives, of course, is in the other things that you might think, like grounds maintenance work and child care and hostess at a restaurant, that sort of thing. And so that's what we see. There are more than one reason, by the way, why teens work less. But our analysis, a statistical analysis we did, even controlling for other factors, suggests that maybe half the decline in teen employment is related to immigration and half is related to some of these other things, maybe substituting capital for labor, technology, or it might be that older American native-born people are working in some of these jobs that they didn't do in the past. And these other factors probably make some difference as well. But
could it be AI? Steve, could it be AI?
Well, again, the big things teens did was like a hostess and a cashier and, salesperson and food prep. Some of that has been automated. Some of that, as you point out, kind of an ordering pad. So there's some of that, but most of it, these jobs still exist. But what's the kinds of things that happen, say, in the summer I go to Rehoboth Beach here it's not far from here. It's in Delaware. And what you see there is all of these young people, particularly from Eastern Europe. And just if you want to know how that works, it's a J1 program. They come over. To them, it's a lot of money. They work in the summer. And they tend to have longer summer breaks. And it looks very attractive. So the companies go to Europe, recruit these kids, believe me, in like December, go to the employers in January and February and say, look, I can bring these nice kids. They'll work hard. They'll be grateful even for a low-paying job at the beach, running the carousel or waiting on people on the boardwalk. And you won't have to pay them that much. They'll be nice to people. They speak English. And by February or March, all the jobs are taken up. Well, American college kids typically don't start looking for a summer job until more like April and May. But by then, down in Rehoboth, all the jobs are taken. And employers kind of like this system because they sign up their workers quick. The companies that go over to Europe recruit these folks, charge them a fee, and the kids are still willing to do it from Europe because they get to come to America. They get to make a lot more money in the summer here than they'd ever make in Belarus. They get to travel around the U.S., so they're satisfied. But the losers from this process tend to be the American teenagers, high school kids, college kids, or the kids who don't go on to college.
Yeah, I mean, that's terrible. I mean, my first job was at 14, and it was a real job, and I had to be there, and it was, I had to start at 5:30 in the morning, and it was tough. But boy, I can't imagine if I did not have that experience. Would I be anywhere near that I am
that
today.
Is so
we're creating the lost generation.
Yeah,
here.
I agree.
I agree. Hey, Steve, it's been wonderful to talk to you, man. Wonderful work and everything that you do. Steve Camarota from the Center of Immigration Studies. We'll be sure to have him back here soon because this topic is not going to go away. Steve, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Dr. Ruffman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffin. Rich, I can't believe it's flown by, but here we are at segment 5. Wow. How do you like that? Flown by segment 5. Here we are.
Fast-paced show. They're all fast now.
You got to connect the dots here. And it's amazing and how you got these kind of like parallel universes. And we talked a lot about that today. Just got, two groups of people looking at the same data and coming out with totally different outcomes. But CNBC had a headline this week. U.S. labor shortage is reaching a critical point.
Okay. That's right.
And so we got this shortage. We speak to Steve, and you look at all of his data and his studies and all of his facts, and says, hey, look, there's about 50 million people right now out there who wants to work 18 to 63, wanting to get into the labor force, and they're not. They're just kind of like the lost people. It's the shadow unemployment that we talk about.
Sure.
So unemployment really isn't at 3.8%, because if you put in all these folks who have just given up looking for jobs, it's much, much higher. Yet, according to CNBC, we have a labor shortage reaching critical point. So what about those 50 million people who are out of the labor force that should be in the labor force? Don't they count?
Well, I guess they do. What I find amazing, and this is why I was glad we had Steve and Camarota on the show, and that is that the story that's told in media now, constantly, over and over, that we hear, and this is CNBC, so this is not some middle to the right group of people. This is middle to the left group of people. It's an NBCer. And they're saying the U.S. labor shortage is reaching the critical point. Steve's discussion is, I'm not so sure we're going totally in that direction. Maybe this is a contrived talking point. Maybe we're not giving the opportunity for some of these people. Maybe we're doing this because, for insidious reasons, we want to bring people in from other countries who will presumably have those skills and can fulfill these jobs for less money. And that's what stayed in my mind when I listened to Steve speak about a week ago on this topic. I said, wait a second, I'm so conspiratorial anyway. I mean, that's why I can't stand Bernie Sanders. I mean, the guy's so nuts. But this does, to a degree, I could see this happening. Now, should more of these people be in the workforce? Yes. I don't know why they don't count these folks. I mean, if you think about it, Neil, what was the true unemployment during Obama's reign? What was it? Was it 30%?
Yeah, I mean, we had shows to where there were experts talking about 20, 25, 30.
That's right.
But it was much higher than what the official number was, and it's because you have these invisible people. You got these invisible people that's out there that nobody's counting and nobody's caring about. And then, as Steve said, with the big corporations, immigrant labor is cheaper, and they don't have to pay this, they don't have to pay that. There's a whole lot of things that is conspiring against the American labor force. And that's what we're here talking about every week, is how do we protect the American labor force. And in order to protect the American labor force, and in order to protect American prosperity, we got to take care of our kids. We got to take care of our kids. And that means our teens. And that means our young people. Now, Steve talked about, people who are 17 that don't have a job. People who are 15 should be having a job. I mean, just to get that skill, to get that discipline, to understand the ways of the world. And we're robbing our young people of this opportunity to participate. And notwithstanding that, hey, isn't it great to have a little money in your pocket? Doesn't that give you dignity?
That's part of it.
Doesn't that give you pride?
That's very important.
Doesn't that make you walk around with a little bit of a strut and a stride that says, hey, look, I'm accomplishing something?
Neil, you know what that meant to me? I started working when I was 14 years of age. In those days, no one really cared. But and I was sweeping floors in my father's friend's warehouse, toy
and we were
facility.
we were definitely in the majority, and we were probably 80% of the kids back then were working.
But you know what it meant to me?
At least in my community, we didn't have a lot of rich parents around.
There's a parallelism from when I was a kid to what we tell adults today, and that is I wanted to be independent of my father's money, even at age 14 and 15 and 16. But the fact that I would make whatever the heck it was, I can't remember anymore, maybe $20 a week, after school. Now, my summer job as a lifeguard was different. We made a lot of money, great girls. It was a wonderful time. I ate a lot of French fries. But it gave me my freedom and my independence from my family in the sense that I can make my own decision. I didn't have to say, hey, Dad, can I have $10 to take Robin to the movies and get a hamburger after the movie? I didn't have to do that. And that was very, very important to me. Now, coincidentally, I learned skills and talents, and I learned what I can do, and you have failures along the way, so you learn to deal with success and failure. Very, very important. I worry for the future of these kids that don't get these jobs and don't have those opportunities.
And that's what we're faced with right now.
Yep.
Hey, Rich. Boy, you were a passionate voice today.
I didn't know what's happening.
You were really into it.
It's amazing.
I love it.
I know.
I love it when you get that way.
Yeah, it's good.
But we're out of time. We're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.